On our way to a family gathering, Michael suddenly turned pale and quietly urged me, "Turn the car around immediately." I was shocked. Why? "Just turn around, please." I chose to trust him, and that decision saved us. Once I learned the reason, I could never view my parents the same way again. The plan had been straightforward. Leave early, keep snacks ready in the back seat, coffee within reach up front, drive several hours, cross into Canada, embrace some relatives I had not seen for a long time, and pretend to enjoy potato salad. It was meant to be ordinary, almost dull, which was exactly the point. I was behind the wheel as usual, mainly because Michael tends to panic at the last moment, and I happened to be skilled at avoiding motion sickness. The children were half asleep in the back, partly watching a cartoon and partly bickering over imaginary boundaries on the seats. All three of them, ages 5, 7, and 10, small bundles of chaos hugging matching neck pillows. Everything was normal. Nothing special, nothing terrible. Just normal until he said those words. "Turn around now." At first, I did not react. Or maybe I did, but without any real feeling. I either laughed quietly or smiled faintly. One of those automatic responses when you think someone is joking, but it is not quite amusing enough to really laugh. "Why?" I asked. Michael did not respond immediately and just stared straight ahead, then said firmly, "Please, just turn around." That was when I realized this was no joke. Michael never panics. His usual mood is calm, and sometimes weary. I have watched him manage a kitchen fire with less anxiety. I took the last exit before the border. The road curved gently as if inviting me to take a different path, offering a new opportunity. The moment we left the highway, Michael's tension eased slightly. Not completely, but enough to show he had been preparing himself for something. I said, "Okay, want to tell me what's happening now?" He only shook his head and replied, "Just keep driving." I asked, "Drive where?" And he answered, "I don't know. Anywhere but there." The children began to notice. My middle one asked if we were going the wrong way. I said automatically, "We forgot something." "What?" they wanted to know. "I'll explain later," I said. The youngest asked if it was snacks, but I didn't answer. Michael stayed silent for a long time. We drove on quietly, maybe 20 minutes or more, surrounded by endless trees, with guilt pressing heavily around my neck. Then he finally said, "Take the next turnoff." It was a narrow road, unmarked and leading to nowhere. One of those spots you find only when you're lost or on the verge of something. I pulled over. Michael unbuckled his seatbelt and told me to stay put. He got out and walked toward the back of the car. I couldn't see anything from where I was, so I sat waiting. My hands were sweaty, and my heart was pounding in a strange, fast rhythm, like it was aware of something I wasn't. After a minute, the trunk shut. He returned to my window and said, "Can you come out?" I asked why, and he said, "I need you to see it." His voice was not angry or scared, just exhausted and deeply certain. I got out, and he led me to the back of the car, opened the trunk, and said nothing. I felt something, just pointed at me. I looked, and then forgot how to breathe. I was not frightened, at least not yet. The fear was still approaching. What I experienced at that moment was something slower and heavier, like sinking through the floor of my own existence. I did not touch it, nor did I need to. I simply understood we were just one wrong decision away from losing everything. The strange part is I really believed I was the responsible one in the family. Not responsible as in paying taxes and wearing sunscreen, although yes, those as well. But responsible as in the steady person. The one who did not break down, disappear, or lie for fun. The one who made an effort. The one who offered support when possible and set limits when it was necessary. Looking back now, truly reflecting, I realized that being the responsible one in my family was like being the designated driver at a demolition derby. They did not want help. They wanted someone to cover for them. And I provided that for years. This pattern began in childhood. My parents were the kind who believed that living well was about appearances, not finances. Appearance was everything. If you looked successful, acted generous, had your Christmas lights aligned perfectly, and the fridge stocked with 5 varieties of mustard, then you were considered fine. It did not matter if the credit cards were maxed out or if the gas was turned off that one winter. According to the script, we were doing well. That was the narrative. Stick to it or be rewritten. We endured years when money was tight. I recall evenings when cereal was dinner, and either Michael or the other parent would suddenly be working late almost every night. Later on, I understood that this was their way of hiding the truth that we could not afford much. Yet, there were also seasons when money was plentiful. A brand new car, a new television, garden furniture that no one ever used. The finances came and went almost like passing weather. What never seemed to shift was the habit of spending. Once I asked my dad why we did not save more when times were easier. He replied, "You do not have to save if you know how to hustle." I was only 8 then. Emily took on all of this energy, the sparkle, the magnetic charm of a person who can brighten a room while quietly undermining their own dignity. She was clearly the favored one. That was never hidden. Not out of malice, just a simple fact. They liked her more. They related to her. She was like them. I was not. I was dull. That is what they called me, sometimes straight to my face. Boring, uptight, too serious. My mom once said during Thanksgiving dinner that I confused discipline with personality. Strangely enough, I believed it. Growing up in a home like that, you start to think that the only way to be worthy of love is to remain helpful, neat, and reasonable. So that is what I did. I became the dependable one. They would call me whenever they needed assistance with insurance forms or school paperwork, or when Emily lost yet another job and someone had to cover the gap. I offered what I could. Not too much, just enough. To prevent everything from falling apart, I held just enough together so I would not seem like the villain. Even when their actions caused pain, even when every refusal was painted as selfishness, I still gave because they were my parents, and because it seemed less complicated than the alternative. Then everything shifted. This happened roughly 4 months before the trip. Emily's son, my nephew, was having difficulties at school. Bullied, so they said, unable to fit in, anxious and withdrawn. They had him assessed, and apparently a therapist recommended a more intimate setting. There was a private school, very exclusive and costly, described by them as life-changing. Naturally, they could not afford it, but they had somehow secured a conditional acceptance if they made a deposit. They just needed a bit of help to confirm the spot. Of course, they promised to pay me back. My stomach dropped the moment those words left their lips. It was not that I was indifferent. On the contrary, that was the hardest part. I cared about the boy. I wanted good things for him. But I recognized the pattern. I knew how such requests began and how they ended. I said, no. I expressed it carefully, as if speaking to someone gripping a fragile glass knife. I cannot cover private school expenses. I have 3 children of my own. We do not do private school. I am sorry. There was no shouting, only a sudden silence, cold and distant. My mother remarked, "Of course, I forgot. You have your rules." Then we barely spoke for a time until the reunion was approaching. Suddenly the atmosphere became bright and cheerful again. They were overjoyed to see us. They had pieced everything together. The school, the reunion, the drive, it all fell into place. I did not ask how and told myself it was none of my concern. They wondered if we could take an additional bag in our car since their vehicle was packed and we had the SUV. Of course, I said. Just tell me when. That was several days before the journey. Then, on the morning we were leaving, While we were gathering our things, my dad handed me the red duffel bag. "It will not fit in our car," he said. "Only this one." I accepted it without hesitation, simply tossed it in with our luggage, the children's backpacks, and a cooler filled with juice boxes. I did not even unzip it. I did not question why they had suddenly become so calm. I did not stop to wonder why those struggling to afford school, groceries, and fuel, and who blamed me for not helping more, were now completely fine. They smiled as we pulled out of the driveway, waved as if they had no worries at all. And for a moment, I thought it was strange. They looked genuinely happy for once. But I did not dwell on it. Just another bag, just another trip, just another family complication I did not want to get involved in. Perhaps I should have asked more questions. Perhaps I was too trusting. He did not sound angry or frightened, just exhausted yet very certain. "I need you to see it," he said. I got out. He guided me to the rear of the car and opened the trunk silently. He unzipped the red duffel bag and folded back a sweatshirt. And right then, everything changed. I stopped. Inside, wedged between clothes, hidden in what appeared to be a child's toiletry kit, wrapped in plastic, were packages. Not just one. Not particularly well concealed. Simply there beneath layers that would not have deceived anyone doing their job thoroughly for more than a few seconds. I stared, initially confused, then suddenly fully aware. Not medication, not supplements, nothing with an innocent reason that did not involve handcuffs, lawyers, or news stories. I remained silent. I could not speak. Every muscle in my chest tensed up. It felt like drowning, but in slow motion. He did not say, "Look what they did." He did not say, "This is what I suspected." He just zipped the bag closed again and let the quiet complete the thought. I stepped back. The gravel crunched beneath my shoes as if it belonged somewhere else, disconnected from anything real. "They put that inside our car," I finally whispered. My voice was frail. "They put that inside our car." Michael nodded silently. "With the children," I added. Another nod. For some reason, I looked up at the sky. It was still blue. It still appeared to be a nice day. I hated that. It felt wrong, as though the sky had not received the message. "How did you know?" I asked. He hesitated before responding. His gaze remained fixed on the closed trunk, as if it might magically open again. "When they handed us the bag," he said at last. There was something in their eyes, the way they smiled, as if it was already decided, as if they were certain it would succeed. He shrugged, then shook his head, as though he could not believe it either. I tried to erase the memory from my mind. I could not stop thinking about it throughout the entire drive. Then, just before we reached the border, it suddenly struck me. He looked at me. I did not know exactly how, but somehow I understood. And that was somehow even worse. The fact that someone else had witnessed it. What I had trained myself never to notice. I turned around and walked slowly back to the driver's seat, climbed in, closed the door, and sat quietly for a moment, letting the warmth seep through the windshield while my hand trembled. Then I started the car and began driving again. The children did not ask any questions this time. They were deeply absorbed in a cartoon. They had forgotten about Canada, about Auntie Karen and the cousins, and even about the small toy bags I had secretly packed for the family reunion. We drove for quite a while, first on the highway, then taking side roads, without any particular destination. My phone started to buzz violently. At first it was my mom, then my dad, then again and again. I did not pick up. Neither did he. We knew perfectly well what they would ask. "Where are you? What happened? Are you safe? Where is the bag?" We offered no replies. We simply kept driving while the screen lit up every few minutes like a persistent warning. Eventually, we turned toward their house almost instinctively, as if we were following tracks. We did not speak about it since we both understood what must take place. I pulled into their driveway and parked. The porch light was still glowing from the previous night despite it being the middle of the afternoon. Michael stepped out first and circled to the trunk. I followed silently behind. No words were exchanged. First, I reached out for the mat and discovered the key still resting in its usual spot, attached to the back of a fake rock my dad had ordered from a catalog that also sold deer whistles and solar-powered frogs. Michael unlocked the front door and we stepped inside. The air was filled with the scent of old coffee mixed with carpet cleaner. We placed the red duffel bag just inside the hallway. We didn't open it or even touch it. It sat there like a silent bomb that didn't need to explode to wreck everything. Michael turned the knob and locked the door behind us. We got back into the car, still without exchanging a single word. I think we both felt as if speaking might contaminate something fragile. Later that evening, once we arrived home and the children were asleep, and the house fell completely quiet, I answered the phone. It was my mother. Her voice sounded overly cheerful, as if she was calling about something trivial like muffins. "Oh, honey, we were so worried. We didn't know what had happened. You just vanished." I said nothing. "Is everything all right?" Still silence. "Where is the bag?" I let the question hang for a moment before replying. "We left it at your house." A pause followed. "If it mattered that much," I added, "maybe you should have brought it yourself." Her tone didn't shift, but I caught it. The subtle hesitation that revealed she understood exactly what I meant, and that I was fully aware of what she had done. Neither of us spoke after that. Then I said firmly, "We're not going to do this. Don't call again." I ended the call. That was all. No shouting, no final confrontation, just a clear closing boundary. The door had been closed and the curtains drawn. That should have marked the end of it, but it certainly was not. Not quite yet. They arrived on a Wednesday. No heads up, no message, only the doorbell sounding repeatedly as if they were dropping off treats instead of burdens. Even before I looked, I knew it was them. There is a certain weight in the air when these people come through a front door, like a foul odor or the crackle of static, especially when they believe they have done nothing wrong. I opened the door just enough to step outside, and then closed it firmly behind me. My parents stood there pretending nothing had happened, carrying fake smiles like they were stashing them in a bag. My mother wore a tight, rehearsed smile meant to seem kind but failing to reach her eyes. She said, "We wanted to check in," as if we were part of a casual chat, and I had missed a brunch invitation. My dad jumped in. "We thought maybe we could clear the air." I said nothing, merely folding my arms and standing my ground. After a pause, my mother said, "We weren't sure how much you really understood." That was the giveaway. They knew. I knew. The only question was how much I had allowed myself to believe their excuses. I tilted my head and asked, "You mean the bag?" Neither responded, which spoke volumes. "You put it in our trunk," I said, "with your grandchildren sitting just behind." My mother swallowed hard. "We never thought it would cause a problem," she muttered. "It wasn't supposed to be anything," my dad added, trying to sound calm. "Just a little help with the debts, nothing more." "We were desperate," my mother admitted quietly. "You refused to assist." There it appeared once more. The fallback justification, the universal excuse. You refused to assist, as if it were merely a reaction to my supposed stinginess, as though their betrayal was an expected outcome of my limits. I did not yell. I did not cry. "You did more than betray me," I stated. "You endangered all of our lives." Neither of them responded. "You endangered your daughter, your son-in-law, your grandchildren." My dad shifted uneasily. My mom blinked as if attempting to cry but could not quite produce any tears. "It is over," I declared. "Do not call. Do not come here. You will not see the children. This ends now." She opened her mouth, and I could already predict the familiar phrase forming. You're overreacting. Maybe you will calm down. Instead, she simply said, You will change your mind. You always do. I turned around, went back inside, and locked the door behind me. For the first time in a long while, I did not question if she was correct. 3 days later, I arrived at the school to collect the children. They were not there. My heart sank so rapidly I could not find words. I just stared at the teacher as though she had announced my house was burning. Oh, they were already picked up, she said calmly, as if nothing was unusual. Your parents said you told them to. I do not recall driving. I remember being inside the car, hearing the engine, but nothing else in between. They were at my parents' home. Naturally, they were. Inside, it appeared, it was as if a birthday celebration had exploded everywhere. Toys, sweets, balloons, and an entire Lego set that cost more than my weekly grocery budget. The children were radiant, buzzing with sugar and clutching their new treasures, laughing as if they were in a magical place like Disneyland. Michael's parents were behaving like this was completely normal. My mother was carefully cutting the cake. My dad was sitting on the floor assembling something that beeped. The scene felt unbelievable, like stepping into an alternate reality where grandparents cared more about giving than receiving. But they did not. And this was not genuine love. It was a calculated move, emotional manipulation, affection used as a weapon. They had never spoiled the children like this before. Not once. Yet suddenly, after we distanced ourselves, Santa Claus appeared wielding a debit card. I stood there for a moment, trying to recall the feeling of giving someone the benefit of the doubt. I could not. We are leaving, I announced. The children complained. Why? Grandma asked. We are leaving now. They did not comprehend. Naturally, they did not. How could they? They were hearing yes from people who had spent their whole lives saying no, and they enjoyed it. It was easy to enjoy. Can we keep the toys? Asked one, holding a stuffed bear as if it contained the solution. I hesitated briefly, then said yes because taking the toys away would cast me as the villain, and I refused to let my parents have that victory. As we walked away, my mom called out softly and melodiously, They will come back to us. They always do. She spoke as if it was undeniable. She spoke as though it were a promise, as if she still believed she could win. That evening, I did not wait for some miraculous sign or a sudden emotional collapse. Instead, I simply sat on the bed, glanced at Michael, and said, We must leave. He did not question why. There was no need for him to do so. I do not want them anywhere near the children. Not at school, not in the supermarket, not just down the street, pretending to be innocent. He nodded slowly, as if he had already been halfway to that conclusion. You mentioned North Carolina once, I continued. Your company has an office there. Your parents live there too. I was not ready before, but now I am. He nodded once more. The transfer is still an option. Fantastic. I said, Let's go for it. There was no drama or hesitation, just a calm resolve to close that chapter and never look back. I was not seeking revenge but distance and a fresh start, far enough away that they could not find us. Months later, we had settled in North Carolina. The mountains were breathtaking. The air carried the scent of pine and new beginnings. The children enrolled in new schools. His parents, warm and grounded, lived 20 minutes away and genuinely wanted to support us. We shared our location with no one. We blocked numbers and vanished, not with any dramatic exit to find oneself, but because we deserved tranquility. One day, an unknown number called my phone. I let it go to voicemail. When I checked later, a cousin I hardly spoke to had left a message saying, Hey, your mom. She said she had no idea where I was. She was truly distressed. Michael said, You just stopped all communication. I don't understand what is happening. but family is important. I erased the message, did not return the call, did not offer any explanation. By that point, the only thing on my mind was this. We were safe. We were free. We had not vanished. We had escaped. About half a year passed. A new state, a new school, fresh routines. I had nearly grown accustomed to not checking my phone with anxiety. The silence was still awkward, but no longer frightening, just calm. Then an email arrived from Emily. The subject read, "Urgent, please read." I stared at it for quite a while. I considered deleting it without reading. I thought about marking it as junk. Instead, I opened it. The message was lengthy, frantic, filled with poor punctuation. The summary? Our parents had been taken into custody again. This time, it was not just foolishness, although that was somewhat involved, but for actually carrying out the very thing they had almost caused us to get arrested for. They attempted to smuggle something across the border themselves. No brokers, no family members to blame, just a car trunk loaded with goods, and two people in their 60s who still acted like rules were optional. Predictably, they got caught. The email concluded with a desperate appeal. They require assistance. They need funds for legal defense. This is critical. You must put the past behind you and step up for your family. I read those words 3 times. Then I clicked reply. I simply wrote, "I did show up once. I am not going to do it again." And I meant every word of it. I did not hear anything more for quite some time. I did not need to. Yet eventually, the news reached me, as it always does. Cousins talk. Family trees may have decay, but the roots run deep. They were charged with possession intending to distribute and trying to cross an international border with illegal substances. A few pounds, enough to show intent, but not enough to make headlines. They accepted a plea agreement, 4 years each. It is not life-altering, but it is not insignificant either. Enough time to reflect on what they had done, if they were even capable of that, which frankly, I doubt. The part of me that used to cringe when people talk about second chances has grown silent now. We have a life here. It is far from perfect, but it is ours. The children smile and laugh more. Michael sleeps more peacefully. And I have not needed to turn guilt into silence in a very long time. As for everything else, I do not regret setting those boundaries. Not even for a moment. But you tell me, did I go too far or not far enough? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you are new here, make sure to subscribe.